good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to this Seatrade Maritime Virtual Conference, sponsored by DP World. And now it is our pleasure to introduce a message from International Maritime Organization Secretary-General, Kaitak Lim.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure for me to join you today for this influential industry gathering. I know over the course of this event, you will be celebrating the achievement of this important maritime region and discussing the opportunity to support the various sectors of this vibrant industry. This discourse of particular importance now, with the unprecedented impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on our lives, in particular on maritime sector and its seafarers. The world depends on maritime trade, and this has been in evidence as shipping has continued to deliver vital goods, food, and medical supplies throughout the pandemic. Sadly, we have also seen how seafarers have become collateral victims. Hundreds of thousands of seafarers are stranded on board or desperate to get to ships or home. We are working in close collaboration and cooperation with the UN agencies, with the industry stakeholders, and with the government to try to resolve this crisis. I thank all those who have been assisting to address this situation. Shipping will also be at the heart of the economic recovery and sustainable growth far into the future. I'm certain that we will have an opportunity to build back better, more efficient, and greener. To achieve this, IMO's comprehensive regulatory framework covering all aspects of shipping have never been so relevant. The pandemic has illustrated the need for greater efficiency. Shipping's sustainability beyond the pandemic will depend on its ability to embrace digitalization and new and smart technologies. Cooperation between shipping, port, and logistic industry will be vital to enhance the efficiency and sustainability of shipping, facilitating trade and fostering economic recovery and prosperity. And there is even bigger challenges to move toward zero carbon future. We cannot shy away from the energy transition in shipping to meet the ambition in the IMO GHG strategy to cut and ultimately phase out greenhouse gas emission from shipping. Short-term measures to improve ships' carbon intensity have been approved at IMO last month for adoption next year. These are important building blocks for future discussion on mid and long-term measures. We will lead new technologies, new fuels, innovation, meaning huge investment, notably in R&D and infrastructure. More action is needed to speed up this process. IMO is stepping up its effort to act as a global forum and promoter of R&D in zero-carbon marine fuels, bringing together interested stakeholders from the public and private sectors from around the world. We must ensure that no country is left behind. IMO leads a portfolio of continuously expanding capacity building projects, supporting decarbonization, innovation, bringing together numerous stakeholders from diversified sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, maritime trade is vital to the global economy. Building a safer, greener, cleaner, and more sustainable maritime industry will require further international cooperation, targeted policy intervention, and investment today for a more sustainable tomorrow. We must all work together to enable a sustainable post-pandemic recovery and a truly sustainable future. The Seatrade Maritime Middle East provides an excellent opportunity to discuss and to provide ideas for the future of shipping. In this context, I wish you every success and prosperity. Thank you.
To introduce our panel and guide us through the next 60 minutes of discussion, please welcome your moderator for this session, founder and CEO of eTriena Media, Etna Triena.
And hello, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Let me add my welcome, of course, to everybody here to the Seatrade Maritime Middle East, the road to recovery. We're all delighted that you've been able to join us, and so many people logged in already on this virtual conference. Thank you so much. It's great to see so much interest from all around the world, so a big thanks to all of you. We have an action-packed, information-led, content-rich few days ahead for you. And of course, just what we heard there from the Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization, Kaitak Lim, we will be looking at many of his points, of course, and developing them as we go through, and we have our first opening discussion of the morning. A big thanks, of course, to our main sponsor, DP World. Always, of course, happy to be here with you too. And of course, when we look at Seatrade Maritime Middle East, it's really the Middle East's largest maritime trade event and conference. And of course, in the coming days, we're going to welcome the region's largest gathering of ship owners and connect them with thousands of industry professionals from both the local and the international market. We really have a lot going on. But let's get started with our panel. We have so much to discuss when we really look at the road to recovery and we look at the year 2020. And when we look back, I think we have so much that has happened. But let me quickly introduce our panel to you. Her Excellency Engineer Hassan Al-Malik joins us. We're delighted that she's here. She's the Executive Director of Marine Transport for the Federal Transport Authority for Land and Maritime here in the UAE. So Engineer Hassan, great to have you with us. We're also delighted that we have the Director for P&T Commercial for DP World, the UAE region, Shahab Al-Jasmi is with us. Thank you for joining us, Shahab. From the International Maritime Organization, the head of Air Pollution and Energy Efficiency of Maritime Environment Division, Roel Hunders. Roel, great to have you here as well. Also, the president from BIMCO, who is also the CEO of Captain Uglu Shipping in Turkey as well. We're really, really delighted to have Dr. Sadan Captain Uglu. So lovely to see you, Dr. Sadan. And Esben Coulson also joins us. He is the chairman of the International Chamber of Shipping. So really, we have a very diverse panel. We have so much to discuss, and we have the right people in place without a doubt. Esben, if I could perhaps start with you, particularly when we look at the International Chamber of Shipping, and perhaps you can give us a little bit of an overview, really, when we look at the lessons that the shipping industry has learned when we look back from this experience. It's been a tough year for everybody, not just in the shipping industry, but for economies all around the world, and indeed for every industry. But what do you think will be the lasting legacy, I suppose, from the COVID-19 and from 2020 for shipping? Esben.
Thank you very much, and I hope you can hear me okay. I've had some technical problems here, actually, and I'm very sorry that I've had to resort to my phone because neither my laptop or or main computer would pick up sound apparently. But
Well, you're coming across
certainly
loud and clear and looking good.
okay, very good. Certainly, this year has been like no other, I think, for whatever industry you're in, and certainly for shipping. I think the biggest single issue of this year has been what the pandemic has caused in terms of the difficulties in affecting crew change. We have at any one time 1.2 million seafarers at sea, and at any one time 200,000 to 300,000 should be rotated under the normal ILO Maritime Labour Convention rules. In many cases, this has been proved impossible, and so we've had what I think is not an exaggeration to say is a crisis in this regard. And this crisis, I think, has caused not only ourselves, but our many fellow associations, including Sadan of BIMCO, who is here, one of the many we've worked very, very closely with to address this issue. And you may know that only very recently, this month actually, Indonesia introduced a resolution in the United Nations, which was fully adopted, strongly encouraging governments to help in this process, because seafarers are key workers, and key workers should be treated as such, but I'm afraid to say in many jurisdictions they are not. So we've had a major issue with this, and I very much fear, unless it is improved quite dramatically, there is going to be kinks in the supply chain. I think there's no doubt about that. We have fortunately not had it yet, due to the tenacity and courage and commitment of seafarers. But as we have tried to highlight, along with our other associations, time and time again, this is a major and a really important issue that must be dealt with. We developed these 12 protocols together with 15 other associations. We've introduced them to governments. IMO have accepted them, but there are still governments who simply do not want to get involved in this process, and who makes it very, very difficult. The one positive, just to close on this part of it, the one positive is to say that we found through surveys that the duration, the in excess duration that seafarers are serving beyond contractual date is reducing quite dramatically, and that is, of course, a good thing, but it is not an end-all be-all solution. So that is the number one issue. We've dealt with the low sulfur fuel coming in January, I would say extremely well. I mentioned the United Nations. We are having to embrace digitalization and new technology at a speed never seen before. But we're a resilient industry, and I have no doubt that we will handle whatever is thrown at us. Thank you.
Thank you too, and indeed it is. It's a very uncertain time in all industries, I think. But at the same time, too, as you said, it's a very dynamic time when you look at the new adoption of digitalization and you look at what's happening around the world, and particularly in regions like this. But again, as you say, we really need to be addressing what's going on with the seafarers. Operational excellence can only continue when we have, all of our people aboard. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too, because I know it is a concern for many people, of course, around the world. Engineer Hesse, if I might ask you, when we look at the Middle East at the moment, and indeed we look at it over the last few years, and really it's growing as a global hub in terms of importance in the shipping and the maritime sector, and it has a long history there, of course, but also an increasing important voice too when it comes to international maritime affairs. So when we look at the region, what would you say are the next steps, perhaps, when we look at the goals for this region to become a center of maritime excellence?
Okay, thank you, Athan. Actually, let me talk first of all about UAE and what we plan to do, and then maybe how it will affect the region level. Actually, we work very closely with our private sector. We have a big belief that private sector is the engine for the work in the future. So we tried on a government level to provide the needed legislation for the private sector to work in a proper way and to attract a new investment. That's what we try to do through our new law. We now at UAE at the final stage of having a new maritime law. This law will tackle different important area. This law will redesign the maritime cluster here in UAE, and it will affect even the maritime cluster in the region, attracting more investment, and at the same time maybe will solidify the logistic chain somehow. So we work very closely with our partner stakeholder, private sector, try to assure that they really satisfied with the coming legislation. And at the same time, that we now for the second time we have our position at IMO Council. We have our permanent representative who try to highlight those issues on the issue that at the level of UAE or at the level of the region, we try to highlight it, and at IMO level, try to lobby around certain subjects with our partner to make it more solid and more effective. So I believe somehow we try to drive the region around us with our partner to make we already great in a big area like our ports, one of the most important ports at the region. We have big dry docks, we have a good investment. So we try to make it all at one solid strategy, and that strategy should speak with the international strategy to make it more solid and convenient.
Yes, there is. There's so much work going on. And again, from your focus too with the Federal Transport Authority, really keeping an eye on everything in the region. It's so important. So we'll talk a little bit more indeed about what's happening too. And indeed, I think the pace at everything in terms of what's happening, it's an exciting time indeed. I'll come back to you shortly, Engineer Hessa. Thank you so much. Now, let's have a look from the IMO. And when we look at the IMO's 2020 sulfur emission regime, I mean, a lot of people were concerned about this perhaps last year, but it seems to have actually, as we've heard earlier, this is a very resilient industry. They managed to put it in place. But again, I'd like to talk a little bit, Royal, if I could, about availability and consistency, I suppose, in terms of compliant fuels and the performance, the scrubber technology. Bring us up to date, I suppose, when we look back at what IMO had put in place and how the industry has actually managed to relate to it and actually carry out what was needed. Roy.
Good morning, Edna, and good morning from London, and good to see you all. Thanks for giving us the floor, and you've heard the introduction before our panel by the Secretary General of IMO, Mr. Kaitak, highlighting, of course, the environmental efforts that IMO has taken in the past years, including IMO 2020. And let me just echo before getting into IMO 2020 what Espen has said and what the Secretary General mentioned about the key role of the seafarers. And this is, of course, very high on IMO's priority list as well. And we continue to raise awareness among our member states about the important role of seafarers under the global ongoing pandemic. Now, looking at 2020 from a brighter side, I think indeed IMO 2020 has been a success from our perspective. It was a landmark change for the global industry, and on the 1st of January of 2020, the global fleet of the over 50,000 ships operating worldwide transferred to low sulfur fuel, to using low sulfur fuel around the world. And we have seen so far actually very good reports. We have seen availability all around the world, and we've only been reported of a limited number of cases of non-availability, but definitely not in the major ports around the world. We've also have heard good stories about compliance, so the overall compliance rate with the low sulfur requirements seems to be very high. Of course, we know that 2020, because of COVID, has seen less port state control inspections on board. So we're still waiting for the, let's say, final numbers in terms of compliance over 2020. We know that, of course, the fuel prices have dropped in 2020, and that helps implementing the requirement worldwide. But overall, from an IMO perspective, I think what we're proud of is that when we took the decision back in 2016 that the 1st of January 2020 would be the effective entry into force date, the whole industry, together with the IMO member states, put their entire effort behind preparing for that massive change. And I think that really worked out very well. So we're happy with the results. We're happy with the cooperation, which gives us good lessons also for future challenges, particularly when we speak about greenhouse gas reductions. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And it's great to hear that, because I remember at shipping conferences, you know, a while ago, a year ago or more, there was great concern. And I think that the industry has actually adapted very quickly and, you know, delivered on this. Obviously, again, you know, saying to the IMO that it was a good decision, it was a timely decision. And indeed, you managed to put it in place and bring the industry together. So well done on that. Again, I just want to remind everybody at home that we would love to hear from you. I have a great panel here, and we'd love to be able to put some questions to them. And indeed, today, add those questions, and right throughout the day and for the next few days, please be interactive with the panel. So look over there at the right-hand side of your screen, and you know, think of a few questions, and I'll make sure and do our best to get them into our panel, because I know we have so much to talk about, and there's probably a few things on your mind too. You're in the industry, and I'm sure you want to hear from this great. So Dr. Sadan, I'm going to move on to you, and you have a great perspective on this, because obviously you're a shipping owner, and you know your role too in terms of president of BIMCO. So you can bring us almost two areas of focus on this. So let's take a look at environmental concerns and really the route to zero emissions. It's something that everybody's talking about, something that this industry really has to embrace, and very encouraging to see it embracing. But let's maybe look at alternative fuels for the industry on a day-to-day basis. What's out there at the moment?
Hi, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And please, Edna, allow me, before I start with our, environmental goals, to just go back and echo my friends. We are going through terrible, terrible times. And I have to say that the seafarers are the hidden heroes of this pandemic. And they are essential workers, and hopefully they will be recognized by everyone as essential workers. And one of the very important reasons for this is, I think, shipping now prove everyone how important it is as a transportation mode. Because if we are fighting with the virus right now, if we are actually at home and finding things that we need, that's all happening because of the shipping. So, and how a ship owner performs. Ship owners cannot perform without their seafarers. So I just want to salute them, and I just want them to know that we are doing our utmost best in order to create a system on the long run which will be resilient for them. And when you come back to the environmental issues, I think I have to say, let me start with the sulfur regulation, because as BIMCO, we have a survey. And when we look at the survey, we see a success. And we see this as a first step of what can we do to environment, to a better sustainable future. And that's why it is very important. I would say the sulfur cap was the first test, and we passed it. And one thing also about pandemic, there is always terrible things, but sometimes there are lessons to be learned, and things that you can look up and say, oh, this is a terrible time, but this is good. And one of them is, we saw how shipping companies can change, adapt immediately, almost immediately. So this all give us a hope. And now, as you hear from the IMO General Secretary, Kaitak, and we are on the right track for decarbonizing the shipping industry. But we need two things. For the short-term measurements, I think we have to identify what is the indicators are, and we have to focus on that. But also we have to, focus on the long-term solution. and that because of that we need innovation. I know that some of our members are really into this. There is a lot of alternative technologies is in discussion, and just like also alternative fuels, we will not identify one or bring forward one specifically, because also maybe there will be more than one solution. That is also important. But what is really right now focusing on as the all industry associations, and I have to say, EcoESBN, we are working closer. Now we are working closer than ever. And so we have to focus on our research and development fund, because that is where we can actually bring everybody and focus on giving the right solutions to the industry. So that's what also as BIMCO we are focused on. And I have to say that determination is the most important bit, and we see that. So as long as we have that, eventually we will have the solutions. And also the other parties, non-shipping parties, should help us. And I believe that on the long run, we will see that is happening as well. It is already happening, and we have to see it more. Thank you.
Yes, and indeed, I think it is. We can all learn from other industries, and it is something. I think that it's also time to look outside the industry as well and see where we can actually particularly help. But again, I think that focus is there, that determination is there, and we're hearing it, of course, from all the organizations, but also from the owners as well. So I think we have, a lot to be done in the coming few years. And again, that determination will definitely, I think, guide everybody in the same direction. So Shahab, you're back with us. And again, sorry about those few little technical difficulties, but now we have sound and pictures. So we are great to have you here. I did want to talk to you particularly about the digital transition. And when we look at the technologies at sea and at port in terms of, how is everybody adapting? How is everybody coping? And again, what are the advantages, opportunities, and maybe a few of the challenges that we have to deal with, when everybody is coming up to being a lot more digitally adept. Shahab.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you. It's really a pleasure being with you all here. What makes really this event very unique is the timing. We are meeting actually. We are meeting during a very critical timing where the pandemic is really getting resolved. Let me take you back, ladies and gentlemen, beginning of the year when the pandemic has just started, panic that it has created for the supply chain and delivery of the cargo. I remember that time one was concerned about the essential cargo and goods to be delivered to the consumers with down of trees and the ports and interruption to the supply chain. It was very, very important to ensure the terminals are if we only have well-established automation systems, any type of operation that you have terminals. DP World and Jebel Ali in particular will geared and will prepared in terms of having sectors terminal operation at ensuring human and ensuring flow between different parties. We have put a lot of effort in the last 20 years to have the system ready and in place to ensure minimum human intervention. As I said, DP World has really managed to secure and during this difficult times. Now, what is the way how we manage this was really something everyone in this was proud of. We have really the safety of our people at the first priority, and then DP World managing many of their patients from home. Very unique situation. The continuity of the business and the minimal interruption, as our people are like totally and kept away from any risk of the 19. So with this, we have really ensured the continuity of the business, and the successful point that we have is not only the operation within terminal, and we are looking at our customer services, and the continuity of cargo from the gates has really influence of the way we operate. We have introduced new systems of managing cargo, even for our customers. Example, we have a new concept of DO, delivery order. Basically, the shipping lines would have stopped receiving traders at their counters for issuing their delivery order. That was a very exceptional, unique way of providing the services for the first time globally. We have to introduce this type of services to their companies without having receipt counters, and everything was like automated. The continuity of this was really important. And on the other side, the way we managed the container move was really fully automated with the help of authorities. The Federal Transportation Authority really has helped us big time in terms of managing all type of rules and regulation, easing the policies to make sure that cargo move is a priority for the nation. In terms of terminals, during 2020, we have inaugurated one of our most Terminal 4, which is totally electronically from, I mean, we call it a ghost terminal. You will have people managing cranes and containers at this terminal. Everything is managed far from different control rooms, and we will continue to have this type of operation to ensure the best of services to all of our customers.
Thank you, Shahab. And I want to bring Engineer Hessa in on this, if I may, too, from the point of view of the Federal Transport Authority. I mean, looking at, digitalization, looking at automation, and again, making sure that efficiency is in place and that operational excellency is always in place here particularly for the shipping. Talk to us a little bit about a lot of the work and the work you've been doing with DP World too as well, to make sure that people are managing, I think, the upgrade in digitalization, I suppose, if anything else, because it definitely, automation has been there and we've certainly been heading in that direction. And I think we now have to continue and probably speed it up. What do you think?
Yeah, actually, Ethan, as I mentioned before, that we really work very closely with our partner and our private sector. Here in UAE, we have a big belief on innovation and using the new technology. That's why we have a Ministry of Artificial Intelligence, and we have another Ministry for Innovation. So that's why we really push our partner to go toward the new technology and adopting new systems. But at the maritime sector, you cannot adopt something inside your water. It should be adopted internationally to make it easier for everybody. It's an international business. That's why through our permanent representative over there, we try to highlight a lot of issues. There's a number of paper was submitted by our permanent representative pushing toward this type of business. That there's a lot of legislation should be modified through the Maritime Safety Committee and the legal committee over there to allow the industry using the new technology. that's what we try to do, to be the mediator between the private sector and using the new innovation and between the other administration worldwide, try and convince them the importance of using the new technology. You know, if we go back to COVID-19 and what happened, you know, how the seafarer are really suffering. If you have an alternative, you know, systems, you have a fully automated ship, maybe this somehow will affect you know, the business. It will relieve some of the problem somehow. Going back to you know, the seafarer, UAE was one of the first countries who's opened the door for the seafarer for crew change, and because we really believe on them and they have their rights, and try to minimize the negative impact. But if we thought and if we think in a global way, we have all you know, globally we have to think about the new technology, because it's definitely will minimize the you know, pressure on the seafarer, and it will give us more efficient work on the ports and everywhere.
Yes, we'll continue this discussion too, and I know Abdullah is going to join us. They've sorted out the technical issues. So when we finish our discussion, we're going to go back to him. So I'll be looking forward to hearing his keynote address from DP World. So we will come back to him and hear more. Espen, if I can continue with you perhaps, and I suppose a little bit on just what Engineer Hesse has been talking about too, in terms of the new technology, making sure that everybody is up to speed, making sure the education, the training will be there, and looking at the manpower. But also I want to maybe combine this with a comment from Canon Andy Bowerman from the Mission to Seafarers. And obviously this is something we're getting a lot of comment on, so people very happy that so much is being done. But Canon Andy is wondering, that new legislation, is it in place? Can we perhaps see a copy? And maybe offline you guys can talk separately about this too, but maybe if you might address that. And also I think just in terms of the, you know, the human capital, and what is the industry doing in terms of, you know, also upgrading everybody when we look at, you know, a new world in shipping out there.
Yes, I mean, certainly the work of the Mission to Seafarers, as you rightly allude to, I actually became a vice president of it in June of this year, and as a result of that, I've come to know it much better, and the scope and breadth of what this organization does worldwide is quite incredible actually, and very admirable. And I'm happy to say that I managed to gently persuade a number of ship owners to inform them about the work and the scope of the work, and as a result we jointly with the Secretariat in London managed to complete the Flying Angel campaign, and we're now actually launching into another campaign, and partly due to the strength of the container market, I'm particularly leaning on container companies to come forth, and I'm very pleased to say that several of them have already done so very generously. But this, of course, is one thing, and whether it's the Mission to Seafarers or any other similar organization, I would hope that anyone listening to this would put their hand in their pocket at this time of the year, because really the work has never been more important. Bear in mind that a lot of seafarers, you know, one thing is that they can't change, but the other problem is that they can't go ashore in almost all jurisdictions. So they are literally stuck or on board a ship for up to 17 months, and so I think this is all the work of the mission is very worthwhile. So far as commenting on Engineer Hassan's comments, I mean, certainly investment in human capital in terms of the many new technologies underway, and we're seeing ports connecting better and better and faster and faster, and we see that. I see that as ships will become an extension of that, and it will become a horizontal link, I would hope, as far as possible in the critical cases of standardized equipment that can work across the industry at different types of ships and so on. because otherwise, it just creates extra learning for our seafarers. But this is something that I've been to training centers among some of the major ship managers, and a lot of this work is well underway.
And that's good to hear, and long may it continue, I think, because this is what we have to do in the industry. Dr. Sadan, if I can come to you, also when we look at some of the other issues and challenges that are out there too, and particularly in terms of piracy, it hasn't been capturing the headlines as much as it did many years ago, but this doesn't mean that it has gone away. And indeed, how can the industry look at this? And there's a question that has come up I want to bring to Roel in just a few minutes in cybersecurity as well, in terms of what the IMO is looking at. But let's just look at where are the issues in terms of piracy, and what do we need to do? What does the organizations need to do about this?
Edna, before that, just I want to go back to digitalization, because I think it is going to help this industry become more resilient. And one of the things that I think we can help the seafarers is that they should have a kind of an international pass that they can freely travel, and all their health record can be tracked from there. And with the vaccines now, also their vaccine status can be tracked. So we as BIMCO and with the other, our dear shipping associations, we are working with the World Economic Forum on a platform called Common Pass. So hopefully, actually, there is one demo has been made, and hopefully, there will be an application that recognized by internationally by the airlines as well, so that they can have all this information down there. It can be tracked and recognized internationally. I think this is, and all other initiatives that's been taken now will make our industry more resilient, because what we learned from this pandemic is our great shipping operation is not resilient. I mean, people are resilient, but not the system. So we all have to work more on this. And having said that, we live in 21st century, and now we have the pandemic. I think it is very puzzling to have the 21st century, all this, everything, we know, and yet, we are dealing with the pandemic. And on top of it, we still deal with the piracy. When I talk about this to my non-shipping friends, they are like, what you mean? Are you talking about the movies? The romantic movies about the pirates. And I said, there is nothing romantic about this. And especially when you look at the Gulf of Guinea and particularly Nigeria, we still see the attacks. And the Nigerian government has all the initiatives, and all the means are in place. Now I think we need to see more action. And despite of the pandemic, you will think that things are stopping, but let me read the numbers. The 2020, there has been attacks, 74 attacks, and then actually there is an actual event of kidnapping 26 times. This is commercial shipping, and we have to protect the seafarers and the operation at any cost. So we will, continue to advocate on this, and we are asking everyone to support us and support the Nigerian government, so they can, focus on more. They are already focused, but I think there is more we must do and they must do. Thank you.
Yes, and indeed, when you think about it too, technology and better connectivity and everybody staying more alert, all of this will actually hopefully help in the long run as well. If I might go to Roel, that question that from Yating Chang, and he had a few questions actually, and one we'll talk to DP World about automation and all of that, but I'm sure Abdullah will address that. But at the moment, this one on cybersecurity, in terms of what the IMO is looking at, and looking at legislation in that sense as well. Roel?
Yeah, thank you. And I think this is, of course, a topic which is of high concern. Actually, IMO, the Secretariat in London, were actually subject to a cyber attack not that long time ago. And it really reminded us of the vulnerability of everyone, every organization, in terms of protecting itself from any cyber attack. And so this is on IMO's agenda. It's work in progress, and security has been on IMO's agenda for a very long time. And of course, gradually with the increased digitalization, we're also moving towards more regulatory action on cybersecurity. And I think we've been discussing quite a bit about digitalization, and of course this goes hand in hand. And as IMO, we need to kind of step up our pace as well in those areas. We look at digitalization also from an increasingly a decarbonization perspective. So how can digitalization help us in reducing congestion in ports, in enhancing port operations to make the whole process more energy efficient? We're working with industry quite closely under our Global Industry Alliance. And in that context, we've worked on new concepts such as the just-in-time arrival that actually is really focused on reducing waiting times in ports and just speeding up the operation, and in that way, reducing emission in port areas. We've two weeks ago in the Marine Environment Protection Committee of IMO, we agreed on a resolution that particularly focuses on cooperation between all the different sectors at the national level. And again, maybe from an IMO perspective, it's weird that we focus on such national cooperation, but we just see that for all the main topics, be it digitalization, be it decarbonization, cooperation between the shipping industry and the port industry is crucial. And so I think this forum again highlights that importance, and by means of this resolution that we adopted 2 weeks ago, we emphasized the importance of cooperation at national level to improve international industry like shipping.
And we'll be talking a lot more in terms of IMO regulations and some of those newer ones. We're going to talk a lot about that tomorrow, I know, in our panel too. So you're being kept very, very busy, and will be for several years to come, as always, of course. If I might come back to you, Shahab, and that question that was in there, if we can, in terms of a digitalization, I suppose, timeline, what Yating Chan is looking for, but also, I think when we look at what's happening port side as well in terms of just in time. Talk to us just a little bit about how digitalization too, I suppose, is making that it's a lot simpler, perhaps.
Sure. Ethan, once again, you see the industry of maritime, as you all know, it was a little behind when it comes to automation. And what Engineer Hassa has just highlighted recently, that what's happening on other seas really impacts your operation and the cargo flow from your. The digitalization and the pandemic, actually, the COVID, has really pushed many stakeholders for this industry to move forward and to expedite their plans in terms of developing the digitalization and the e-platforms for each sector. The risk is always there. We all learn from our mistakes, and we have seen major attacks on some of major shipping lines in the last few months. Everyone is really improving, closing and bridging the gaps, looking at the loopholes at their systems. The whole sector will become more robust once we move forward. For us, the backbone of our operation is totally depending on automation. The unmanned cranes that we manage today, it really helped us during the lockdown. Some of the cranes used to be operated back from home. Today, we have people managing cranes, actually not a single crane, multiple cranes from a single PC from different locations remotely. It really helps to avoid accidents, minimize the risk of any type of human intervention. And then when it moves further for customers monitoring and visioning where their container is. This type of automation helps them to better locate their cargo and find out what is the next for them in terms of billing, invoicing, clearing, authorities, transactions. All of this type of ease managing of cargo helps to foster and speed up cargo delivery to customers. Honestly, I see a fantastic future moving forward. I think we have gone through this much earlier. Couple of years ago, we were really pushing our customers, other stakeholders to jump on this boat and follow us in terms of adding more of automation elements to the cargo move and supply chain. Today, we see not only in Dubai and UAE, but also other regions who are well connected with the UAE are following the same manner and also moving majority of operation towards automation. Shipping lines, freight forwarders, terminal operators, all of them are like really seeing the benefit. I believe that 2020 was a year of a major change for the maritime industry, which really helped everyone to cross the tough time. But the benefit of this, we will always see for the years to come.
Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Abdullah in just a few minutes. But before we do, I want just a closing word from all of you. And if I might start with you, Engineer Hessa, really just looking a very quick 30-second closing word, if you would, just in terms of, what's next, what's top of your agenda in terms of making sure that we get through this year and look forward to 2021.
Actually, just in quick points that we really will work our best to push for the new technology and new systems, because it shows for definitely that it is the promising sector for the coming era. And one thing I believe through COVID-19, how efficient was the maritime sector. Now the other industries start learning from maritime sector how to manage through crisis. So because you mentioned something that we have to learn from other industry nowadays, I believe other industry should learn from the maritime sector how they go over the crisis through the COVID-19. And I won't give promises, but it's really the way nowadays that we all push for a new technology, digitalization, using in the new era is coming, and we should all be ready for it, even through what Dr. Sadan mentioned about the cybersecurity and other issues. For definitely will be taken and considered. And
Indeed,
all the best for everybody.
Dr. Sadan, just a quick word from you also in terms of, the innovation that this industry can actually deliver.
I think it can deliver. We have to focus on how to make our great industry more resilient, and by not missing to focus on our real target, which is the decarbonizing the shipping industry. And with the determination and the researches, I think we can do this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Roel, when we look at the work that you're doing, is not looking to 2023, looking at the new regulations from the last meeting it's going to be a busy time for you in the coming year. Roel.
Yeah, thank you, Edna. And I just want to highlight, I think we started this panel by talking about IMO 2020, the sulfur cap, and we have seen that by a good cooperation between member states, between the industry, the shipping industry, the fuel, the bunker industry, IMO 2020 has become a success. I think we need to build upon that and look, as Sadan was saying, we have to look at decarbonization, and we need to make sure that alternative fuels, low carbon fuels, will be available, will be affordable in ports around the world. And I think, the Middle East is a perfect region to make that happen. So I'm looking forward to continue working with the representatives in IMO on making that transition to decarbonization and availability of low carbon fuel.
And a big focus, I know, in the Middle East too. We hear so much about it, and indeed we'll probably hear more about it from Abdullah in a minute. Before we go, Esben, just a closing word from yourself in terms of the International Chamber of Shipping. The year ahead are you optimistic?
I'm very optimistic. You have to be optimistic to be in this business, and I'm a born optimist, and I always have been. Next year will be my 50th year in this industry, and I still have a few to go, I hope. But I wanted to very quickly say, allow the power of the industry to solve the long-term problem, which is the CO2 issue, the climate issue. If you look at what the vaccines, who developed the vaccines, it was private industry. It was not governments. No disrespect to governments, but they need to support our R&D fund for the 5 billion that we propose in IMO, and for it to be a catalyst, one of many. I'm not saying this one will solve it, but one of many, the catalyst for others to join in, to collaborate, and to solve this problem through the power of good old private industry. Thank you.
And thank you so much. And indeed, thank you all so much. Thank you all for your great insight. You have the experience day to day, and we're looking here at the maritime sector in the Middle East. And, great to get all of the updates from the FTA and, of course, from DP World as well. And we'll hear a bit more from DP World in a minute. But just before we go to talk with Abdullah, he's back. The technology is working well. I really want to thank everybody for joining us. Your Excellency, Engineer Hessa, thank you so much. Shahab, thanks for being with us. Roel, Dr. Sadan, and Espen, thank you all so much for your great insight and sharing with us, for this opening panel on, this great event, a very timely event, a very essential event. So it's been great to have all of you with us. And thank you to all of our audience for the quest. Of course, we look forward to engaging with you all throughout the entire event, and to our audience, stay with us. Because now we are going to be able to go over to DP World and have a chat with a very familiar face, a gentleman, as I said, a leader in maritime and logistic landscape here in the Middle East. He is the Chief Commercial Officer from DP World. So I'm delighted to welcome back here in full vision and sound, Abdullah Bil Damani joins me now. So Abdullah, please, Damitan. Abdullah Damitan, thank you so much for being with us.
Good morning, Ethan. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear, so it's great to have you with us.
Very good. Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of DP World Region, I welcome you to today's session, a very exciting session, The Road to Recovery. And I would like also to thank Seatrade Maritime Middle East for organizing this session, as there can be no better time than now to address this. Listening to the esteemed panel has shed more and important light on the concern that we have today. It was very informative and productive at the same time. So thank you very much for these times that you shared today. The entire world has experienced one of the most dramatic slowdown in economic activity in record history, as we all know. This is a huge shock to the economy system and global trade, and the current crisis has triggered a chain reaction across various sectors of businesses. The shipping and logistics industry was not immune, and it is in fact that we had taken a huge hit. The pandemic is a huge challenge for all of us, but it is also a chance for a new beginning. Like it is always said, in every crisis lies an opportunity. So today we are forced to think outside of our comfort zone and beyond our traditional way of conducting our business. We are forced to think of ways on how we can adopt, and transform ourselves. In order to protect our people and our business going forward, global trade will remain essential to overcome disruption and survive uncertainties. Trade pattern may shift because of rising in regional manufacturing. However, demand and supply will drive the logistics and shipping sector. As we heard from a lot of the panel today, sustainability, digitalization, and innovation are the three key words that will lead the path to recovery. And I am very proud to say that UAE and Dubai in particular are already set on this path. We always strive to constantly reinvent and adapt to changes. Dubai proactive approach has put us in a first mover position to reopen to global market, allowing the city to be ahead of the curve. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President and Prime Minister of UAE and ruler of Dubai, has said that Dubai was found on trade, not oil. We at DP World UAE region work toward this ambition of our visionary leader and continue to build on this. So at DP World Jebel Ali, we have complete ecosystem that have been designed keeping in mind the unique need of manufacturing and trade companies. We are very well positioned at every step of the supply chain to support our customer from the first to the last mile delivery. And today we can boast of having the largest and most experienced portfolio of ports, logistics system, shipbuilding, repair, as well as maritime services. We are committed to a long-term joint solution and keep long-term partnership with all the stakeholders, whether they are traders, distributors, manufacturers, or others along the global supply chain. Our sustained investment in technology have been a major contributor for DP World to remain resilient throughout this pandemic. Across all of our global assets, we have witnessed a recovery in Q3 and container volume increasing by almost 10%. So this is really encouraging. We are heading into the next level with the world-leading multimodal infrastructure and logistics capabilities. Our collaboration with IMO is testimony of this. And as a member of the IMO Council, we believe there is an essential need for global collaboration among ship operators. Additionally, DP World, a leading global trade partner of Expo 2020, intend to use this diverse platform to help foster its vision of becoming a responsible business unit by aligning itself with IMO 2020 emission and sustainable development goals. Recently, DP World, together with Expo 2020, has become the Global Alliance founder partner of the Earth Shoot Prize, one of the most prestigious environment prize in history to encourage action to restore nature, clean our air and ocean, build a waste-free world, and fix our climate. Whether it is a futuristic technology or being a leader in port-centric logistics and solution, or being an integrated port of future trade, or also being a diverse or driving force in achieving a sustainable earth and environment. DP World is always and will always be strive to push forward and curve its path for the future. So today's session was graced by a pioneer from this industry, and it was an opportunity for us to collectively take up the responsibility to analyze mechanisms that will drive this path of recovery. Connecting mind, creating the future is the motto. We need to aim to build partnership and inspire new ideas for a sustainable world. We are all in this together. We were wounded, and now we need to recover. With this, I would like to welcome you all once again and thank you for taking the time to be part of this very essential discussion meant to initiate on how future trades need to be remodeled and reinvented. Thank you very much and wish you a productive day ahead.
And thank you so much, Abdullah bin Damithan there. Thank you so much. It's great to hear your words. And there, as you talked about, the importance of shipping to global trade, the necessity of the logistics and the maritime sectors. Innovation is key. And I think we heard that from all of our panel as well, apart from being brought up to date with the great work at DP World. But we really heard that, I think, the focus and the dedication of all of our panel, that very diverse panel that talked very much about the commitment and the innovation that has to be in place by this industry. Dubai, of course, having its origins in trade, and it will continue to be a major player, not just regional, but a global player as well. And again, really looking at how, shipping will facilitate trade around the world, and it will do so in the years to come with greater efficiency, greater effectiveness, and it will do so, in a cleaner, greener, and more digitized world as well. So a lot of challenges out there, and it has been a tough year. I think everybody will admit that, in every industry, has to look back on this year and really look at the lessons learned. And of course, the shipping industry, like every other industry, will be looking back at that. And I think we heard some very encouraging words from our great panel there, and indeed also from Abdullah. So thank you all so much for that opening keynote, for the opening panel address to this conference here. It's great that everybody was with us. A few technical issues, but minor, when we think about bringing people from around the world to make sure that we bring you up to date with what's happening with regards to the maritime sector and the shipping sector here in the Middle East region, particularly, and its impact on the global economy. So it's great to have everybody on board. We have a really great few days in place, content-rich, information-led, so many great experts coming to share their knowledge with you and to really discuss what's been happening in this industry. So do stay connected and make sure you do put your questions in for the remainder of this wonderful conference. So do stay with us. We have lots coming up. A big thanks again to DP World, our sponsor, and we really hope you enjoy and stay with Seatrade Maritime Middle East. As I say, lots to expect and lots to enjoy and lots to engage with. So once again, to all of our dear viewers out there, to our great panel, and to Abdullah for that opening keynote address, again, thank you so much. So stay with us.